side-by-side coming down, and it's going to be Caleb Hall taking it.
NASCAR has Daytona, IndyCar has Indianapolis, sports cars have Le Mans, and Formula One has Monaco. But what is the common theme? They're all crown jewel tracks, and Solstice Racing has CRI SuperSpeedway. Purpose-built for the series, the 2.9-mile SuperSpeedway, built in 2008, and it is known for resembling Pocono in shape, but that's about it. High banks and a narrow front straightaway proved difficult to handle as defending ProLine Cup Series champion Michael Frisch dominated last season, but he lost by a bumper to Jake Poulin at Daytona. Will the 58 gain that extra bit of momentum to open the season strong, or is this race once again going to be dramatic? As Brandon Nicholson down on pit lane, it's Dylan Limagood alongside me in the commentary box. I am Josh Mertz as we bring in the 22nd season of Solstice ProLine competition here in Gadsden, Alabama. And Dylan, a lot of silly season notes as we enter the season.
Oh yeah, and I can already spoil to you who the person who would hate to lose the most here is going to be Michael Frisch. He's got to back up his dominance last season and see what he can do here. This track's going to prove calamity. I can't wait to get this thing started.
As 103 laps here at the basically 3-mile oval. There's a couple storylines coming into today's race. Chad Mikas, one of the fan favorites, he's not here today. In the 25 is Alexander Russell substituting for the Chicago native. And irrelevant to drivers, we have a bit as we work into the pre-race show here. Turn 3 is going to be known as Calamity Corner here. There's a nasty bump exiting that corner. And from all the video that I can watch of previous races, that turn 3 realistically is where everyone crashes.
Yeah, and I helped Brandon Lambert work on the setup for quite a bit throughout this last couple of weeks, and it's tough with that bump coming off the corner because it really throws your car off on exit. And people who can get through that bump are going to be able to power it down the straightaway and win the race.
As a couple of notables as I look through the entry list, Dylan Smith's back, Nick Baker, Corey Spencer, Steve Rada, Jake Poulin, Cosman. Alex Russell's subbing for the 25 of Mikas. Cody Erdman's back for Area 52 racing. We saw him for the first 4 or 5 rounds last season. Then he joined us in Pensacola. He has actually got his former teammate, Chris Wetz. It's really odd to say that coming from NASA Rallycross, but former teammate Chris Wetz, who came so close to winning the championship last season, they're teammates and they switched to Toyotas. What do you think about that?
Anytime you have somebody like Chris Wetz on your team, it really brings a whole lot of experience to the table, and so, I would never count that team out at all, especially at a super speedway. Wetz really knows how to sit there, kind of lay back a little bit, wait on the prowl, and then pounce when the right time comes.
As there's a lot of entries obviously registered, some are not here. A couple notables as I look through, Dylan Poteet was not able to make it today. We're in driver's meeting. Let's see if we can connect up to the driver's tower, but we'll have to see.
If under, that's fine. When we get to 5 to go, we're going to have like an overtime line. So you'll look at me on track here in just a second. So we're going to have an overtime line with 5 to go. This is only at 5 to go. So once we get to 5 to go, once we get past the exit of this corner and we change to the old asphalt right here, if we're at 5 laps to go and we pass that point right there, then the race will end under green. If we get a wreck with 5 laps to go before we get to the old asphalt out of turn 2, we will throw the caution. Everybody will slow down. We'll all pit that lap, and we'll go back around, and we'll go green the very next lap. So, at the very least, we'll have a green, white checkered. So we'll have a 3-lap shootout. That's at the very least. But if we get past this point, then it's point of no return. Does that make any sense?
I understand.
Yep. Basically, there's going to be no more late race yellows. If we wreck late, then we just race it out.
Yep. And also, there's no racing back to the line until the point of no return.
If we're past the overtime line and admin throws caution out, ignore it.
If we get past the overtime line, there's no more cautions.
I know, I'm saying, like, if somebody accidentally types out.
Reflex.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Once we get the 5 to go and when we get past that, yeah, once we get past the overtime line, it's green to the end.
Yeah.
All right. Other than that, standard rules, everybody knows. Restarts in the restart zone, double foul, leader has choice. Leader goes in the restart zone. Lights race is 103 laps, 300 miles. Stage 1 is lap 25. Stage 2 is lap 50. Last stage is to the finish. I tried to do the fuel thing here, but it just didn't work. It was either 11 laps or 34. There's no freaking in between. So, I'm sorry. I tried to get it till we have to make a pit stop every stage, but it's not gonna be that way. Other than that, I don't have anything. Admins. Y'all have anything to add? Baker?
Have fun. Watch out for me, I'm a menace tonight.
Alright, also, I'd like to welcome Michael Frisch and Jake Poland to our moderator group. They will be helping me and Baker out through the season. And also, they will be helping me admin during the iRacing series later in September. So.
Don't make me boot you.
Well, you don't have that privilege yet. So yeah. we'll get y'all set up for next week. And speaking of next week, I will not be here. So Jake, I'm gonna need you to do setup and all that shit for Phoenix.
All right.
And Lambert here as well. We would like to welcome in all these fine viewers that we have here on HVMP's YouTube, and we wish you guys a good race.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And
it's
Josh,
interesting.
That was such a unique kind of step into their world and kind of what they hear before the race, and the wise words of wisdom from Brandon Lambert.
I'd have to agree. And what's interesting is while turn 2 was repaved, I think that's the first time that they've used kind of an overtime line scenario. We remember when the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series did this, I want to say, 3 years ago? It didn't really work very well. But I think Solstice implementation, we'll have to see if we need it later. But I think, judging off of what he was saying, it's a better implementation of what NASCAR did.
Yeah, and actually, Josh, this runs a little bit deeper than that because the reason why it's a little bit better implementation is I can remember many, many moons ago, back in probably 2011, back when Caleb was still racing. That's why we have the point of no return here at Solstice Racing, is because things happen that are uncontrollable, from race control, even though they do their best and they try to build in all these things to try to get, the most fair racing and get everyone lined up and have an equal shot at the finish. But at the end of the day, you have to call it quits. And it's been known here at Solstice Racing, once you cross that the point of no return, there's no going back. Whoever crosses that line first, whoever scored first is going to win.
As while we're in qualifying, Michael Frisch does move to True North Motorsports, which I'm not sure. His entry blank said True North last season, and then it seemed like he was teammates with the Prestige Worldwide guys. So I'm not really sure. Maybe we miscredited Prestige Worldwide with the championship. We'll have to correct that if we figure that out. But it's interesting to note that there's a lot of drivers, like Arnold Columbia registered as well, teammates with defending champion Frisch. Calder Rozier's back. We have our HVMP colleague Dylan Body. We were talking in the production truck that he might make a one-off appearance at a super speedway race. Dylan's still not able to make it yet. Some other commitments, but hopefully he'll be able to join us in the next couple of weeks. On the entry blank, yours truly has registered. I'm thinking the Charlotte Roval is a good race. Colorado Motorplex. Actually, while we have a little bit of time, I'm not sure if you have that graphic, but let's pull up the schedule just to talk to these guys and let them know what we're looking at. As today is July 11th, obviously enough. We run through November 21st, so I'm thinking that that's the Thursday before Thanksgiving. So we have another decently long season. So ISM Raceway is the second round of the championship. Then we go to Fort Worth, Texas at the Texas Motor Speedway, and Valkenburg, Milwaukee. Out by me at the Lucas Oil Raceway in Indianapolis. Out to Denver, Darlington, Dover, Charlotte Roval, then Kansas, and the wild card at Daytona. And just like we saw at Talladega last season, anything can happen, and it usually does. Round 1 of the playoffs, well, technically round 2, is Iowa, Trois-Rivières, and Auto Club. So we do make it up to Canada this season. And the final round of the playoffs for the ProLine Cup, Pocono, Colorado, and Atlanta. And I don't know if the length of the Colorado race is correct, because 150 laps. We did not run 150 laps last season. We ran 80, I think.
I'd rather run the 88 laps at CPMX, and I'm not sure if Denver's an oval or if that one's a road course.
I honestly believe it is. I was looking through the Facebook group for Solstice Racing, and it is, I believe, like a stadium type oval. So that should be a really good race. Very exciting. So 2 home state races for HVMP. How'd you feel about that?
You know, it's just great because we love the people who are here in the Denver, Colorado area. Obviously, this series was born in Colorado with Caleb Paul, and we continue to try to support Colorado business. We've talked about Bad Daddies. I know one of Caleb's partners here, who's exclusive to the Colorado Springs community, is Randy's Towing. Those guys do a fantastic job every single time they ask for a tow, and so to be able to see 2 dates represented on the schedule is, it's just close to my heart.
So 14 cars getting ready to take part. Granted, it's not the big field of Daytona, but in an off-the-record personal opinion, it's better to have a small field at a super speedway. We were on the air for 2 hours last season at Daytona because there were so many cars and so much margin for error.
Yeah, and this racetrack really thins out people who might want to show up on a whim, expect an easy super speedway, and those guys who truly know what CRI Super Speedway is and the beast that it is, and how hard it is to drive, and I expect I assume that's why we are seeing the smaller field here, but should provide for some great racing, good strategy. I mean, you're really gonna have to partner up strong here to be able to do something in this race.
As next graphic we're going to run through is, like I said, I don't see the director feed, so the playoff format for the ProLine Cup Series, just to refresh everyone's memory, we got about 2 minutes left in qualifying before happy hour, so we got some time to go over this. 12 drivers at the end of the regular season will be transferred through to the playoffs. There's 3 rounds for the ProLine playoffs. The first round, obviously this season, is Daytona, so the graphic we have is probably incorrect. We're going to blame Brandon Lambert on that because he's the graphics crew and he didn't update it for us. The top 8 automatically go through to round 2. So those are the guys that can get through. Like Frisch last season, he blew up at Talladega. There's no issue for him. 9th through 12th are going to battle for those 2 spots. And then the second round goes through, and then it gets cut to 5, and then we have that final round. So points graphic, if we have that one, hopefully. Race winner gets 30, second 27, third 25th, fourth 23, fifth 21, and then from 6th down to 24th, it counts from 19 down to 1. You do get a point for leading a lap, the most laps, and the pole position. And the stage points and playoff points. Stage points are given to the top 5 in the stages. Playoff points are top 3. As if we take a look here at qualifying so far, Brandon Lambert 54.611, Cosman 54.622. I was going to lose my mind if Jeremy Stanley was a 54.633, but he's really close, 54.637, and then Poulin 54.658.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
really
I mean,
excited,
tight
really
times.
excited for this race. I mean, I've never seen a race at the CRI SuperSpeedway. Personally, I've only seen, there was a clip. I don't expect you to remember this, but it was obviously, I think it was a sunset race or a CRI race or a Solstice. My mind combines them all. There was a race here in the trucks, and the whole front straightaway was blocked, and everyone was in this wreck, and that's the only thing that I remember about this track.
Yeah, and Josh, that's one of the great things about our perspective up here in the booth is that your Solstice history kind of predates my Solstice history, but I have a little bit of a broader Solstice history than you do, and so, I mean, obviously, I've never raced here at CRI SuperSpeedway. When I was there in testing, this was my first time running this track, but, you know, obviously, I'm sure I know you've run here, and you know, Josh, I mean, what do you think these drivers are going to have to do to be able to win this race?
It's a very narrow track compared to like Talladega, for example, so it's going to be very tricky to run. We're going to have 3 stages. The stages are ending at 25:50 and then the finish of 103. So Brandon Nicholson down on pit lane. We'll keep you posted. He'll keep us posted, rather, on all of those facts. Let's actually bring in Mr. Nicholson here down on pit lane. What do you think is going to happen during today's race?
Well, thanks, Josh.
Unless we lost him.
As we just lost his mic feed, actually, there.
I think we must have lost it down on pit lane.
We can have him step up over here to my mic.
Thanks, Josh. These drivers have been reporting all practice long that these cars are super loose. That they can't control the cars. We might see some disaster happen, and I think that the key to today's race is just kind of playing it safe and avoiding all the disaster.
As looking so far through the field, let's recap. Lambert, Cosman, Stanley, Poulin, Erdman, Rada, Bailey, Russell, Dylan Smith, Arnold Columbia, Chris Wetz, Michael Frisch, Corey Spencer, Nick Baker. So 14 cars getting ready to duke it out. We got 3 minutes left at happy hour, and I really can't guess as to who's going to win this race, because this season openers are always the greatest because you've got brand new paint schemes, you've got brand new teams, brand new cars. I mean, this track is unpredictable. There's a football field on the infield between turns 1 and 2. They were joking that Bubba Wallace was going to be down there throwing footballs, which I thought was comical. I'm really excited. As, again, I hate to roast you on a live stream. I've never been here. So I'm curious to actually see. I asked Brandon Lambert, because I was looking from our blimp feed, that there's an infield road course. I'm very interested to see that layout, and maybe if Solstice runs that track at a later date.
Ooh, as we see, you know, I mean, really, you can go anywhere down the straightaway with this setup. You know, and I want to go back to the way that we were talking about how these guys are handling. I was the one who tried to fix the setup. I desperately, I mean, really pushed going through the corner. I mean, this track has just developed so many bumps. We talked about this in our pre-race meetings here for HVMP, that, you know, this surface needs to be redone after this season. And a lot of these guys, they brought a and Solstice Racing really brought a package that was used to the nice smooth corners that everyone's been used to. But since we haven't run here in a while, it's kind of gotten a little dilapidated.
I think they were actually supposed to do a renovation that was supposed to be done. And I think it was supposed to be done over the winter time. Weather was pretty bad, so they weren't able to get it done. So I think everything's going to be renovated at the close of today's race. So it's definitely going to be interesting. There was a track, I can't remember where it is. I want to say it's in the Northeast that I used to run at all the time, called the Todd Ring. And when I walked into this track and I looked at all the corners, it reminded me of that track. But that track is narrower in the corners. While this track seems pretty narrow, we'll have to see if they can go 3 wide in it. I don't think they're going to try that early on in the race. The main straight is 4,200 feet, so nearly a mile long, and the turns are 35 degrees.
Yeah, and Josh, I have been eavesdropping all week, and what some of these guys are saying is that really going into turn 3, you can only go 2 wide. There's no place to go after that.
As we'll have to see if there's going to be another duel between Poulin and Michael Frisch, as Poulin started out his season strong in the best possible way for season 21, 2019A, winning at Daytona. Will 2019 be his season to win another championship? We got a couple seconds until we fire the engines here in Alabama.
It's just going to be one of those wait-and-see type games. Josh, I'm not sure if you actually have the numbers on the amount of races that we have on the schedule, but just by looking at the graphic, with me switching it around earlier, it looks like we have more races this season, especially in the main part of the season.
It's 10 races and then 7 in the playoffs, so it's still 18 races. If I remember last season, we had 18 races. So Jake Poulin, a 4-time champion. Chris Wentz, a 3-time champion. Brandon Lambert, Michael Frisch, they are now, Frisch now, a single-time champion of the ProLine Cup Series. So we are 18 weeks away from crowning yet another champion of the ProLine Cup Series. And what better way to do it than on High Voltage Media Productions? If you're just joining us, you don't have to worry about the pre-race show. It's Dylan Living and Josh Mertz in the commentary box. On pit lane, Brandon Nicholson, as we bring you the second season for HVMP here for Solstice Racing, as we finish up the happy hour session. And I just can't wait to get this race started, Dylan. Honestly, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and honestly, there's been a whole lot of anxiety down on the paddock. Are we going to get through this race? Who's going to survive? What are we going to do for tires? What are we going to do for fuel?
Drivers, to your
There's
cars.
been a lot of huge discussions that have been going on. How we're going to run this place, just based off lines. Basically, this first stage is just going to be everyone feeling it out. And if it's anything like last season, it's going to be super aggressive.
Let's go through the starting grid officially this time for the season 22 opener. On pole is car number 46, Brandon Lambert, for Lambert Motorsport Technologies. In second position is Cosman, the 3-time winner last season for Big Evil Dodges. Second row of the grid is Jeremy Stanley in car number 60, as he won in Michigan last season. And on his outside, we have the 21 of Jake Poulin, our Daytona winner, and the 4-time champion.
I'm Staff Sergeant Proto with the soldiers of the 1st Cavalry Division. Gentlemen,
as we rev up the
start
engines
your
here in Alabama,
engines.
third row of the grid, Area 52 Racing, Cody Erdman, and Big Evil Dodgers, Steve Rada. Joey Bailey, Alex Russell, who is subbing for Chad Mikas, fifth row of the grid. Dylan Smith, Arnold Columbia, and it's Chris Wentz, defending champion Michael Frisch. And on the 7th and final row of the grid, it's Corey Spencer and Nick Baker. As I had a blast last season through those 18 weeks, realistically, let's say like 15 or 16, because there was a couple of races that I had missed, but these 18 weeks are going to be action-packed. It's going to really prove why Solstice Racing is the racing series for NR 2003.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with that statement. These guys are innovative. These guys are trying stuff. These guys are putting on some great racing on top of that. And every single week I applaud, Solstice Racing admins and everyone who works week in and week out. to get the show on the road and both here at HVMP. And, you know, for those who do participate in HVMP and you guys aren't here right now, I'd like to thank you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying the week off, but for all you viewers, you guys got the weekend on right here.
As it's interesting, as the 58 car rolled out of the truck with the Granger sponsorship, that's his retro car from Darlington last season, and Lambert didn't know. So Lambert asked Frisch, "Are you stealing my sponsor?" As they both rolled the cars out of the trucks. I really don't think that's the case. We know that Frisch is a hot commodity, so maybe Granger says, "Well, we'll sponsor 2 cars," as the defending champion. Obviously knows how to get it done.
Before we take off, we gotta applaud. Now if we're talking about paint schemes, we gotta take a nod to that 71. Never have I ever seen him in a more beautiful paint scheme. Will that thing end up out front?
There's no green on that car, come to think of it, but we are coming to the green flag of season 22 here of Solstice ProLine Cup Series here on High Voltage Media Productions. Brandon Lambert and Cosman on the front row of the grid, as we hope to see you for these 18 weeks as we're green in Alabama.
Taking a little bit for the RPMs to gain up in the engine.
Jeremy Stanley's not going to take any prisoners, and he's not going to wait. He goes to the inside, so the Michigan winner goes to the inside of Brandon Lambert, as these speeds are estimated to be higher than 195 miles an hour, but we'll have to see once the pack gets going. Cody Erdman and Joey Bailey behind him. It's Steve Rada. So there's 4 cars on the inside. Michael Frisch, defending champion, drops down to catch up to car number 3. From the commentary box, we can't see them. They look like small specks, but let me tell you, when they come around turn 3, this camera is one of the best that was placed by the HVMP camera crew. As through turn 3, who's going to lead the first lap of the season? Will it be Stanley or will it be Lambert? And stamp your name on the plaque of the first lap led, and it's Lambert leads the first lap of the season.
You know, and nobody more wanted to lead that lap than Brandon Lambert. You know, he has so much pride in this racetrack. It's a home race for him.
And we just have to talk about, as much as he doesn't want us to talk about it, the disappointing season that he had. It was very not Lambert-esque. His pull into the inside in the 21. Arnold Columbia on pit lane on the 39, so we'll have to see what the True North Motorsports team is doing to that car for the Canadian. But who better? If we had to pick a driver, who better to lead than Mr. Solstice himself? I mean, at least when I think of Solstice Racing, I think of Brandon Lambert as he led that first lap.
Well, and then he's definitely been part of this, call it revolutionary phase that Solstice has been going through. And, you know, Brandon Lambert is a man who's put in the blood, sweat, tears hour and hour in, as he's going to lead another lap here. And makes this series so great. And so, really, he's one of the guys from day one who's always been around. And, well, I mean, Josh, you could probably tell the story about how Solstice actually came to fruition from an argument against Brandon Lambert.
I can't comment with that because I can't remember what happened, but I do know it was Brandon Lambert, Caleb Paul, way back in the day. I remember the Sunset Racing days; those were way back, and then CRI happened, and then Solstice happened. There was a lot of change in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Speaking of change, I don't think Lambert's going to lead the third lap, as Jeremy Stanley has Cody Erdman behind him, along with Steve Rada in car number 3. So
Yeah,
on the 7-Eleven day, Jeremy Stanley leads the third lap.
Yeah, and that being said, I mean, it's cool to see the support that's lasted through this series throughout the years. But yeah, I think as we're starting to see these tires warm up a little bit here, I think that inside line's just going to get a little bit better. It's going to get an advantage for a while until they start getting their tires too hot. And it starts wearing a little bit too much, and then they're going to have to move up to the top where Brandon Lambert's at.
I'm not really sure, but Arnold Columbia, I think, had some transponder issues in car number 39. He was on pit lane, and then he parked. I'm a little more concerned as I'm looking at the driver's scanner. Chris Wetz is somehow in the driver's scanner while he's driving. And we know the 71, as he hits the wall, we know the 71 doesn't have a mic on his helmet. So Maybe he should try and drive instead of doing that. But we know Wetz knows what he's doing. In the middle, Cody Erdman in the 52. No drafting help for the man from Wisconsin.
3 wide sucker hole, not where you want to be here going into these corners.
And Steve Rada from Florida, longtime super speedway expert, trying to take the lead, but Jeremy Stanley has the run on the outside with Lambert, Cosman, and Frisch. In the middle is Dylan Smith with Joey Bailey. Bailey was actually supposed to be racing his real car up in the Northeast. That race got rained out early in the morning. They called it. He flew down here, and here he is in car number 51 to set sights on winning the championship. As we know, he came so close last season.
Yeah, now we're going to test that 3 wide going into turn 3 there. Easily settles out, but quickly back poking 3 wide down here on the front straightaway.
Stanley still leads as we've got 4 cars closed up. Russell in the 25, deputizing for Chad Mikas is not tied up to the 58, and then the 11 of Corey Spencer in the Old Spice Challenger. Very nice paint scheme for the 11. He's kind of floating between the 2 lines, and then we have 3 cars in the back: Jake Poulin, Baker, and Wetz. So these guys, I don't think there's enough cars to go 3 wide, so I don't think we're going to worry about 3 wide too much this evening, but I've seen crazier things happen with less cars.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it just might ramp up that little sense of urgency a little bit more. Because honestly, there's less people to get it done with. You have that one partner. I mean, hopefully you have that one partner. That's what everyone hopes for at the beginning of the race when you're on these super speedway tracks, is that you have a partner, you have a friend to work with. Because if not, it makes it really lonely. And then with this few of cars in the field, you start to get desperate to try to make things done.
How does 202 miles an hour sound in the pack? That's what these guys are running.
That's going along pretty fast here.
As through the tunnel turn 2, the repaved corner, Dylan Smith now trying to edge ahead of Jeremy Stanley. While we have a little bit of time, actually, we forgot to mention in our pre-show, there was a huge retirement in the offseason I'd like for you to comment on. The Shermanator, Keith Sherman, stepped away from Solstice over the offseason.
You know, Sherm's always been probably one of the most... Oh,
Caution!
No!
Rada's around, Lambert around in the front straightaway. So is Cosman. To the pit lane goes the 71 of Wetz. Honestly, I don't think anyone got any damage. Look, well, Lambert's got a little bit of a nick on the back bumper. Blown left front tire. We're under caution here on lap number 8.
Yeah, and Josh, I'll get back to you on that story, I promise you, because...
I'm going to roll my monitor back while the graphics crew is doing their thing. But, oh, okay. I'm not sure if the director picked it up, but I'm looking on my monitor. And honestly, Cosman had a huge run, and he sent it through the middle. Rada came up and into the 46. So there was no room for the 24 Cosman, and Rada and Lambert both closed the door.
Yeah, and we'll wind that back up, and we'll give you that side-by-side replay there again. But, you know, I really no harm, no foul with that. Really a lot of soft hits. Don't think anyone's gonna... Really, yeah, that was just an argument for real estate right there.
And we've seen it happen, the plate tracks. I mean, these guys, they're going, and the door closes. Actually, speaking of, like, real estate, I think these cars are not running plates, because I looked in the aerodynamic package in the files. There's not a restrictor plate on these cars, so I think they did what NASCAR did. They raised the spoiler up, and this is the result. A huge, basically, parachute behind the car, and you are very slow unless you're in the draft.
Yeah, and guys were really talking about, before this race got started here in practice, about just how strong that rear end force really is. It just takes the rear end of the car and it just drags it all around.
Let's see if there's any strategy played here on lap number 9. We're pitting for the first time in 2019B. as Corey Spencer and Jeremy Stanley out of their pit boxes first. That doesn't necessarily mean Spencer will beat everyone off, as Bailey beats the 11. Bailey's going to come out second, then Spencer, then Russell, Erdman, Poulin, Wetz, Lambert, actually Baker, then Lambert, Rada, Frisch, and it looks like Cosman and Dylan Smith. I think the LMT crew they were able to tape that bumper back up, so good work for them. As
And it's really interesting. It's gonna separate that Dodge from that Toyota there, or yeah, that Dodge from that Toyota there. Not sure if that was by design, them working on that last run, or if we'll see it later in the race.
as Cosman leaves his pit stall. Remember, you do get stage points, playoff points. You don't get locked in if you win a race. So it's not like the NASCAR playoffs, but it certainly is important if you win races. I mean, don't get me wrong. While we did see Wetz get to the championship round without winning a race, it would certainly help if you won races. I think we might be going back green this time, as my connection to race control I don't think is working, so we're just going to have to kind of wing it for the season opener. Actually, I stand corrected, so just as I go to talk about it, it is working. We are going green this time. I look to my right, and there's this big box. I plug in the headset, and there's like 5 outputs, and you have to push a button to which one it is, and I wasn't sure if that one was on. Jeremy Stanley is going to lead Joey Bailey on the front row of the grid, coming down to the restart zone at 85 miles an hour, about as fast as you drive on the interstate. Green flag.
And that's going to be interesting how they're going to judge that restart there, because that 60 was way out there. Is it going to get too far out there, though? No, the 51's going to slot in.
Going into turn number 1. Bailey peeks to the outside in the 51. Spencer in the 11. Erdman in the 52. As going through turn 2, the tunnel turn. Stanley tries to defend on the 51. The 51 of Bailey was there and off of the corner. Let's see if Joey Bailey can get it done. To the inside of Erdman goes Lambert in the 46, and Lambert is not going to take any prisoners to get back to the lead, as we're 3 wide, as Spencer in the 11 in the wall take him out of the equation.
And this might be a little bit too early for this, making some aggressive moves early on here as Lambert cuts to the outside.
As Lambert gets the jump and the bump from his new manufacturer teammate of Erdman.
And leaning on the front straightaway.
And there's a Granger sandwich for the 52 car. And the 2 Granger cars, remember, they are not teammates. Brandon Lambert and defending champion Michael Frisch. And like I told him at the close of last season, as Wetz way off the track in the 71, I told him at the close of last season, from a champion to a champion, it's going to be immensely difficult for that 58. Not saying he can't, but to win a championship is one thing. To defend it is a completely different thing.
Oh yeah, and we've both been in that situation before, and it's just, you have a whole different mentality when you finally do win the championship. You're on top of the world, and you have all that momentum going into the first race the next season. You have
As one on the apron, Cosman bit the apron. Wetz, second place points man from last season, hit the wall exiting 3 and hit the inside wall. He's in the pit lane, and the man from Texas not having a good race.
Yeah, the right side of that car all torn up.
As you were mentioning defending championships, speaking of championships, I wonder what's starting. I know we talked about it in June, but I know what's definitely starting the first Tuesday in August.
As we can put a shameless plug in there, yeah. August 6th. NASA Sim Racing. We gonna start back up. We're gonna do our little rallycross thing.
As 10-week season starting on August 6th, so all drivers are welcome. As
and honestly, I can't wait for that, and thank you to Solstice Racing for all the support that we've gotten on that. It's 3 wide here.
As Wetz in over the scanner says that he has no idea what happened. It bottomed out, stopped turning, and his front wheels came off the ground. So I don't know what's going on with the 71. We know that's a new program, or a renewed program for the 71 for Area 52. So I don't know if that's a car issue or a track issue. We know there's a bad bump exiting 3. We'll have to see if Brandon Nicholson can get anything on that down on pit lane.
Yeah, and I can honestly tell you right now, with the car I was donated at least, that's a very, very real possibility. If you skim across that bump coming off the 3 too hard, it will lift your front tires up and you'll just go smack right in the wall.
Is that why these guys are running the outside? Because I noticed they hit that bump and they float to the outside. So that's going to get a little risky later on in the race when they're 2 and 3 wide and they hit the bump and there's no controlling it. I mean, you're going to float over that bump and potentially wad the field up.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I'm worried about is when these guys start getting side by side going through there. If these guys were in a daisy chain, maybe if we had a little bit bigger pack, this would be a little bit more mellowed out here. These top 10 cars would be all in a straight line, but no, it's, I mean, you got to be on top of it every single lap. You got to be aggressive here with this format and with, the track setup and the track condition. All these things come into a factor where you can't let off going, so you have no other choice but to risk lifting the tires up coming off of 3 here and potentially wadding it up.
As Wets does say, if you hit it at the wrong angle, it will launch you. Speaking of nearly launching, the teammates for Big Evil Dodges side by side, Rada and Cosman, as outside the 2 teammates. It's Dylan Smith with Brandon Lambert as we're 3 wide, 2 rows. Nearly make it 3 by 3 as Alex Russell in the 25 trying to get up there.
Yeah, and this is a little bit more excusable coming into turn 1 here, but it really tightens up coming off turn 2. Really shoots you towards the inside. That's why these guys are complaining about getting really loose coming off the corner. And it's such a short straightaway into turn 2. I mean, really, you have just a split second to make a decision. It's like getting that brief bit of passing lane on a 2-lane country road before somebody comes head on. Whereas you gotta duck out, get back in quick. And then turn 3 is just like riding a bull.
Is that a jab at me? How about the country roads? You have like a quarter mile to try and pass someone, and then otherwise you're going to be head on. Rada leads Stanley, Bailey, and Cosman, and rounding out top 5, Dylan Smith, as Cosman there swooped to the inside.
Well, Josh, these country roads will take somebody home to victory lane here today.
As Lambert with Frisch in the 46 and 58. Frisch doesn't care who he's following. He just needs to get up to the front of this field. Rada holds off Stanley. Cosman trying to get underneath Stanley as he puts him under the yellow line. As Cosman feathered the throttle there, we know that Solstice Racing, just like NASCAR, does not play nice with people trying to go onto that yellow line.
Yeah, and these guys are racing really dangerously right now. These cars are moving around a whole lot.
As it's lap 16 here tonight. So this race, they're going 52 miles or 52 seconds a lap. This race is going to take a decent amount of time. I'm almost worried, is this race too long for these cars?
Oh, as we go 4 wide into the corner, that's not going to work.
As around was the defending champion Michael Frisch and Dylan Smith. As they saved it, no cars actually spun. As you caught that while I was looking at my notes there, looking down in the commentary box.
And we are going to wind those engines down for another caution here. We'll get you another side-by-side.
As Stanley almost just didn't turn. He just drove into the 58.
There was a little bit of contact there going into the corner. I think that's a big factor as to why cars couldn't turn going down there into turn 1 as we all crowded down there. Yeah, as we see from the, wow. It's kind of hard with those billboards in the way, but... just honestly, when you start leaning on fenders coming into the corner, it really upsets the car. You don't have a whole lot to do.
Is now pitting here on lap 17. Cosman, Rada, Lambert, Stanley, Bailey, Russell, Erdman, Smith, Frisch, Poulin, Baker, Spencer, and Wetz. So once again, we did have Arnold Columbia, our 14th car. The True North Motorsports team, I think he missed the grid and then he just never joined the race. So I'm not really sure what happened to the Canadian, but only 13 cars in the event today. And Stanley leads Lambert off the pit lane. So the man who arguably just caused that wreck, depending on what side of the fence you're on, is now leading the race.
Well, I mean, you gotta take jabs when you can, when the opportunity presents, so. And honestly, no other newcomer to the series who joined in later this last season has been on a more dominating streak than that 60 car.
As he won in Michigan. And the fact that he was competitive every week shows that if this 60 team can keep it consistent, we might see a competitor for the championship. As Corey Spencer did get a black flag in car number 11, so he'll have to drop to the back of the field. Wetz nearly loops it exiting pit lane, but they were able to, I think, get the right side of that car beat out. So Area 52 crew is all good to go for the 71, so he's going to join back up at the back of the field.
And honestly, Josh, I beg to ask the question to you. Who do you think Michael Frisch's biggest competitor this season for the championship is going to be?
Bailey and Stanley. Honestly. Out of these cars right here. I mean, these guys... Stanley was racing Bailey at Michigan like Bailey was just another guy, like he wasn't a playoff guy. And we know Bailey's stupid fast. We know if that Rockingham issue didn't happen, he would have potentially won the championship. I mean, hindsight's 2020. We can't really talk about it now, but if we were to pick him at the start of the season, Brandon Nicholson, note those guys down. I am saying Stanley and Bailey to battle Frisch. Green flag, lap 18. As Raider got a terrible restart, it stacked up the whole outside line. As Russell, Poulin, Smith, and Wetz, so the Area 52 Toyota and second place man in points, not having a good restart.
Yeah, and Josh, I'm not quite sure if it's the man in charge or if it's the outside line, but the outside line has really been struggling today on those restarts.
But they're not struggling now as Bailey with Erdman, along with Lambert and Frisch on the outside.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to see how quickly that momentum, this track's built great for that outside line to come in really, really easily within a couple of corners.
As many of our HVMP viewers just a moment ago would have wondered, well, Josh, why don't you pick Chris Wetz? He had such a dominating run without winning a race to nearly win that championship. Well, I'd have to comment. I mean, we know Area 52, I believe, was running Fords last season. Erdman only ran 4 races. There were some technical issues with the Area 52 team, and they had to withdraw from the series. And they're immediately going to Toyota, which is fine. I mean, teams change manufacturers all the time, but from going to one Ford team to 2 Toyota teams, there's going to be some R&D involved, and I don't think that that's going to benefit Wetz to potentially get through to the playoffs. I mean, he might make it into the playoffs, but I don't think he'll get too far.
Oh, it's no friends home on that on the inside line there for Joey Bailey.
Now that I said that, though, since we're on the record, everyone's going to laugh at me when Wetz potentially wins the championship in 18 weeks. But if we only ran this one race right here, and we ignored the fact that he got in an accident because of the bump, I don't think Wetz is going to be into the third round of the playoffs.
Whoa, there's a lot of movement there with Cosman.
Cosman hit the bump, exiting 3, soared up the track, cut down to the middle, and now we're 3 wide. Bailey with Erdman and Lambert. Bailey clears Erdman. And now he just has to block all 3 lanes. Cosman with a huge run in the 24. To the outside.
As the whole field's going to want to go 3 wide here.
As 3, 2 by 2 by 2, Erdman and Spencer along with Lambert.
And it's just crazy to see how much the lanes shift laterally coming off the quarter. Like right there. Bailey immediately able to jump up to the outside, being able to cut that draft off Cosman and force Cosman to push him all the way down the straightaway with that run.
And 2 cars trying to pull away. Stanley in the 60. Cosman, I don't think, can hold the bottom in the 24.
Yeah, and Cosman's really been struggling with the bottom. I do believe that if Cosman's going to get it done here this race, he's going to have to run the high side. And he's making it work here.
As Bailey to the lead in the 51. Stanley in the 60. Poulin now behind Cosman in the 24. And his best friend, Michael Frisch, the two that came door to door at Daytona, now bump drafting each other through turn 3 here in Alabama.
Yeah,
we got a couple laps to go until the stage break, Dylan.
Whoa, is big contact there, not square down the straightaway with the 46 and the 52. He's going to drop back, but
Now,
yeah, Josh, normally we talk about, 4 corners at a regular oval. Those are really, in all reality, 2 corners when you compare it to a layout like this. There's 3 different opportunities to get this thing done, to get that stage win, and to get the win overall.
And as we're inching closer to the final laps of the first stage, remember how important these points are. Who's leading this stage and who needed points so badly at Atlanta last season? Granted, given the circumstances, we're not going to mention that to save face. But Joey Bailey is going to come off the 3rd corner, and he's going to take 2 to go in stage 1, and he's going to block for all he's worth to get those 5 stage points, because those can potentially win you the championship.
Oh, and I can already see this storm brewing right now coming down this front straightaway. These guys who are going to try to make that move to this stage win are making it right now. They're formulating it.
As Wetz, Baker, Russell, and Dylan Smith. Obviously, we don't hope that these 9 cars are going to wad it up, but those 4 are in the catbird seat as Cosman with Poulin, Bailey on the apron entering turn 2.
Bailey might have looked in his mirror just a little bit too much and blew off a little bit too much steam. Is the 24 going to be able to drop down in front of the 51? No, he's not going to defend it.
Cosman cannot do it, but they are getting rowdy on the outside here in Alabama. As Poulin on the way outside of the 21 as we come off of turn 3. Bailey goes to the outside to block. Poulin behind Cosman. We're going to take 1 lap to go. 3 miles left in stage 1.
And Cosman's going to remember that move. He's definitely frustrated about that one. Bailey completely cleared himself coming off the corner.
There's a joke in the sim racing community where you got to see some daylight between those bumpers. There was no daylight entering turn 1, and Joey Bailey now pulls out to a half-car length lead. Stanley and Cosman side by side. Bailey's got to pick a line to block, and he's not going to block the outside, but Cosman's got 4 cars behind him versus 4 on the bottom. Stanley gets loose on the bottom in front of Raider. The bottom is not organized. Spencer goes to the inside, and Cosman, so I don't butcher that all season long, goes to the lead with Poulin and Frisch behind him.
They're going to
But
fan
through turn 3, Bailey gets a huge run off the corner. He's got Stanley behind him. They get unorganized as we come down to the line. The opening stage goes to Cosman in the 24.
And what a power move there on that outside to be able to fan out just a little bit, be able to carry that momentum, get a little bit easier radius coming off that corner and avoid that bump to power it down the straightaway. Josh, I'm telling you, that's what it's going to take to get this win done today.
So Cosman, Bailey, Poulin, Stanley, and Frisch to the top 5. And while it does look sunny outside, we're going to throw it down to Brandon Nicholson. He's got a report for us down on pit lane. What's up, Brandon?
Thank you, Josh. Looks like we are actually not going to go the full distance tonight. We are originally scheduled to go to lap 103, but it looks like Solstice officials see on the radar that a big storm is coming in, and just for the safety of these fans and the safety of the drivers, we're going to go ahead and shorten the race to lap 86 tonight.
So all the timing and scoring is going to read 103, but we just go to lap 86. Thank you, Brandon, down on pit lane. As like I said, it looks sunny as can be, but we know storms can blow in.
Yeah, and
As-
Josh, we talk about that storm, and it's what's the name of the impending hurricane?
As I feel kind of bad because I don't know the name of the impending hurricane, Mr. Livingood, but I know that whatever that hurricane is could blow in, and that is potentially what is causing this shortening of the race. Cosman leads us down on the pit lane. Once he exits pit lane, we're going to bring in our stage 1 winner. If you want to ask him questions for him, see what the hell he did to sneak that stage win away from Joey Bailey. And all these cars are going to be tight right back up. And we're going to go for another 20-ish laps or so. As Watts has some issues again entering his pit stall. The first time is when he spun off the corner, so I gave him some slack. But 71 car not having the greatest time. Exiting pit lane, the pit box first was Spencer, then Bailey. We'll have to see here, can Cosman do it? Yes. So stage 1 winner will lead us off the pit lane.
And stage
Hello.
1 winner with us here on up in the booth. Hurricane Barry coming in. Race is going to get shortened a little bit. We see that there's 3 different corners to make 3 different moves in. Where does it start and where does it end for you, and how are you going to win this race?
I'm not sure, honestly. It's a game of chess right here. It all depends which line you're in, how many cars you got, and all that. Package is pretty fun. It's a little bit dangerous being 3 wide off of 3, but the other corners it's perfectly fine. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, in Cosman, we see people biting that turn 3 bump, like almost like the Darlington stripe. What's the tip to getting through that, and you know, how did it feel getting yours?
Oh yeah, that was a little bit scary. I feared that I was gonna take the field out again. But we managed to save it, and everyone kept on going. It's I don't know exactly where it is. It's somewhere on the bottom or middle line. It bites you out of nowhere. So if we're gonna hit it, hopefully everyone around is cautious enough to let us continue on racing, and just hopefully all it will be is just another good save.
Well, one of your championship contenders there, describing how to get it done.
As I was going to say, if you were going to keep asking them questions, we're going to have to interrupt because we are going green this time here at the CRI SuperSpeedway. Lap 27, as once again we're going down to 86 laps, so about 59 laps to go as Cosman leads Joey Bailey as we're going to lap 50 to end this second stage. 85 miles an hour, green flag. Stanley gets a bump from Rada in the 3 to the 60, and that puts the 60 up to the 24. And we'll have to see if Wetz can stay consistent. He's got his team owner and teammate in front of him. It's a very odd phrase to say, given that Erdman was my teammate with NASA Rallycross, and Wetz was my competitor. Very odd to see that they are teammates here in Solstice Racing.
Yeah, and I'd be very confident with that 60 restarting in front of me. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to clear the 51 and the 46, try to cut that line away from him. If now they can't drift up coming out of this corner, it's not going to work.
4
Cosman
cars. Cosman goes to the outside, leaves his drafting partners, but that's okay because Stanley is getting a push from Rada, Frisch, Wetz, and Poulin as Bailey trying to go to the outside of Cosman, and Cosman in the middle. Off of turn 3.
Ooh.
Will Bailey's going to, well, he looked, as now Rada goes to the inside on Stanley, and Stanley leads the first lap of stage 2.
Yeah, and Stanley trying to reclaim his dominance here at the front of the pack. I'm sure there's one person who's really frustrated he didn't win that segment, and that's the 60 car. He's going to try to go for redemption here.
But look who's in front of him right now. The 58 of Michael Frisch, who, interestingly, Watts got loose in turn 2 in the tunnel turn there, but now Frisch looks like they made contact. I'll get to mentioning Wetz eventually, but Wetz and Stanley made contact, and now Frisch to the outside of Rada in the 3 in the 58. 3 wide with Cosman, Bailey, and Wetz. We have to be careful about the 71. We know he struggles on that bump exiting turn 3, and off the corner. It's so scary because everyone just jumps the corner and somehow does not wreck. Cosman through the middle, forced his way through.
And then we talked about the little bit of real estate that you have going down the front straightaway. This track is so narrow. Once you go and you spit out into a situation like that where you have nowhere to go, it's because it's so narrow.
As Cosman forces himself into the middle and somehow is able to pull it off. As now Frisch has Lambert with Erdman. Stanley got really close to Erdman off of turn 2. The helicopter crew following the pack, doing a wonderful job as Poulin shoved Wetz into Rada. As now 3 wide, as Cosman gets turned by Lambert in turn 3. And Erdman is over in the 52 along with Spencer in the 11.
Oh no. And Josh, with this package, aerodynamics are just so key that you really can't afford to have a rollover like that in a race like this, especially with as tight as this track is.
Erdman in his first start this season. Engine smoke billowing from the 52, and he's going to pull it off the track.
And we just shot to that beautiful helicopter shot, but sometimes beauty can be in disguise, isn't it, Josh?
As a couple cars involved. And we have a camera in our internal camera naming. It's called TV2 in turn 3, and it's planted right on the wall. And you just see the whole wreck happen. And poor Erdman in the 52, they got by it. They were by this wreck. And I'm looking on my private monitor here, and Erdman lost it, hit Poulin, got sent up into Spencer, and they both, actually Erdman hit with the roof, so we'll have to check with him, but Spencer goes over in the 11.
Yeah, and you know, those tires collided at a little bit different rate, and obviously they're spongy and they bounce, and as soon as you hit a car like that, it could just shoot you up the racetrack in the worst kind of way possible.
As, while we have a minute, let's try and pull him in here.
Yeah.
As, Cody Erdman, I really didn't want to talk to you this early on in the race, my friend, but what just happened there?
Just trying to avoid the wreck, and I was just trying to slow down. And within that banking, the car's a little on edge when you're trying to slow down in the middle of the corner, and it just got out from underneath me, and I bounced off a pool in there and head onto the fence, literally.
As we know that the Area 52 team had some technical issues that resulted in you guys withdrawing last season. You're back with the Toyotas. Aside from this wreck, how was the car handling? What was Chris saying to you about his other car? And what do you think about this season so far?
The car felt pretty good. I was in the back that first stage, but I was trying seeing what kind of runs I can get for the finish to get some ideas, and this track's so narrow, and we were starting to it was getting sketchy already, and I knew to back out of it there, and I didn't, so that was partially on me. I should have backed out, because especially coming out of that last corner, it gets so tight that 3 wide is almost impossible. So I don't know.
Dylan, you got anything for Mr. Erdman in the 52?
Yeah, I really want to know who's working with who out there, or is anyone working with anyone?
I think it was just kind of whoever. I know the Lambert Motorsport guys and myself, we were running together, or at least I was trying to run with them to the Tech Alliance that we got formed, and it was just kind of whatever line you got in. I didn't really notice anyone trying to run with together. I noticed kind of the guys that always like to run the top were running the top, and who's running the bottom was running the bottom. So I'm not afraid to run the top. And I know Lambert isn't. So us two were trying to make that top work. I noticed my car didn't like being up front for some reason, although I'm enjoyed being more of a pusher anyways and a leader of the line. So I was okay with that. But it seemed like you had to have more cars on the top and the bottom too, that I noticed.
And really quickly, Lambert, coming off of 3 before we get started here, coming off of 3, what's going to get it to win it?
Not sure. Probably a good run. See if you can find a hole and have a good run. I think is what it's going to take. That's what I was trying to play around with in the first stage.
As obviously, Mr. 52, you're having some rough luck today, but we hope that we'll see you next week. And don't forget, a series called NASA Rallycross that you've won 2 championships in, calling for you back on August 6th. So hope to see you back next week, and we'll buckle up together and race each other back in NASA. So if you want, you can hang out. It's up to you, unless you got some sponsorship things to go to.
No, I'll hang out with you guys. And I got nothing else going on now. Now my car's totally destroyed.
How rough was that bump in 3? Because I've noticed you would basically, now that you're in here, granted Dylan did win 4 NASA championships, but it's been a little bit since he raced. That bump, I'm guessing, was really bad. In the corner.
Yeah, it's that bump coming out of 3 there is hair, like you're getting all 4, like if you hit it wrong, the front wheels are coming off the ground and it shoots you right to the wall. That's what happened. I know when Wet spun out there by himself, that's what he said. His car just whole car launched off the ground and came around on him. So you got to watch it, and you have to know, like, to make sure you give the guys some room on the inside. If they hit it wrong, they're coming right into your door.
Yeah, and Cody, one of the things that I noticed, you're a setup guy too, and you can really feel the car out. It almost seems like the left rear doesn't want to carry through that bump like it should, just because of how violent it is, and that really shoots the car up the track.
Yeah, that, and I noticed too in the setup that we have hardcore pin down shocks in the front, so the front end is slammed to the ground, and when you take a bump with pin down shocks, you go launching. It doesn't absorb it; it just jumps it. So I think it was a little bit of the setup game, and I think that left rear wasn't working how it fully should. But this track with the banking and everything, you needed to drive easy down the straightaway, making moves, and also the corner.
Looks like I think we're going green this time. I haven't heard anything from race control. As recap the field here, looks like I think we are going green, despite the fact that I haven't heard anything from race control. We only have 12 cars in the field now. Rado, Russell, Spencer, Bailey, Cosman, top 5. As we are going green on lap 33. Russell gets bumped by the 51 of Bailey, and it looks like Rada is going to send the 11 nearly to the apron entering turn 1. But the 11 of Spencer has the bumper on the 3, but the 3 of Rada gets turned in front of the field, and Russell plows in, and Steve Rada on lap 34
You know, and when you play aggressive on the restarts like that, that's kind of a byproduct.
Surely the spotter is telling you there's a car low. You know what I think? Remember that this is out of context because no one's going to know, but okay, so there was an iRacing race at Michigan in the trucks, and I was on top of the spotter stand for Dylan, and I thought he was clear, and he wasn't. And clearly the spotter would have told Rada that there's a car underneath you.
You know, I don't think it's a matter of door bumper clear, though. I think Rada
it looks like he just came down.
Spot.
He just came down. I mean, there was.
And you can't.
But on lap 34.
Turn 1 on lap 34. I mean,
there's half the race left.
This is what's going to make it a long race for a lot of these people.
And the defending champion's involved, and so is Lambert. And I don't really have any words other than why. Like, why?
I did notice when I was in the car that Rada was being pretty aggressive. Even like the first lap, he made it pretty wide. So I think he was just pushing it, and just thought he was tried clearing himself.
So now,
I mean, it's probably just the psychology of these racers here. Now that they're behind the wheel, you know, we gotta get to stage 2, guys.
as Stanley, Bailey, Lambert, Cosman beats Spencer. There was no fault to Corey Spencer. In my personal off-the-record opinion, no fault to Corey Spencer at all. He took the spot. He was forced to go nearly under the yellow line. I mean, you know what I think? I always treat a situation like that when a driver gets sent to the wall or sent to the yellow line. It's an F1 analogy when Michael Schumacher put Rubens Barrichello nearly into the pit wall in Hungary in 2010. I mean, Spencer wasn't going to lift. Almost like Keselowski against William Byron, I think. There was no lifting.
Well,
and
if
Boyer
we talk
and
as
Dillon.
competitors up here in the booth, we've all done that too. You know, you force somebody down there, but it gets to be to where you reach a limit and you get dumped.
I mean, we talk about me and you, Talladega, NASA Rallycross. You blocked me, what, 3 times?
No, it's
I
happened
put
to
you in the
best of
fence?
us, you know, I mean, it happens.
I actually think it happened to Mr. Erdman and myself when we were teammates as well. I mean, you just... Yeah. And the only problem that I have is that it was so early in the race. If this was, you know, if it was past the point of no return and Rada threw a block like that and he tried to hold the spot, that's fine. No, but just not that early. I think we're going back green here, boys. So we're going to have Stanley and Bailey on the front row. Rada's trying to catch up to the back of the field. I think he will.
And
Back
we'll see
green,
how
lap
big of
35.
We'll see how big of a sacrifice that is to Rada then. Having to start way back there as he isn't even going to creep into our picture here. With Stanley, another great restart on that inside line.
As Stanley holds Lambert. Bailey in third. Spencer up the hill in the 11. And he's going to back up the inside groove with Russell, Frisch, and Dylan Smith. And now these small-sized fields of 12 cars, it reminds me of not an IRCA race, almost like an IRCA race, but an IROC race. As you've got such a small field, you have to know who you can trust. And you have to know that sometimes you just got to push who's in front of you.
Yeah, and actually I really like the strategy by the field right now because they're not as tightly packed as they were.
As pulling through the middle there in the 21, what a move to get to the second spot.
Allows for great shots like that, doesn't it, Josh? When these guys fan out like that, these guys can really pull the runs. You're talking about the IROC kind of feel. That's exactly how IROC ran. You know, a lot of cars spread out, but you can really get that slingshot move around your competitor.
And that was a huge move as Lambert turns Frisch. And the defending champions around as we're going to mow the lawn in the football field. As Smith around, Frisch, Spencer, and the 2 Granger cars end up wadded up.
Looks like Lambert right front's down. So does Frisch.
And Frisch as well.
Well, if we were awarding football points, I think a couple of guys would have won.
As that was a slide through the whole field. But as we have a caution again on lap number 37, this is getting to the point everyone got through stage 1, and we've seen this throughout last season in Solstice with the stage racing. Everyone gets through stage 1, calm, cool. It's either stage 1 is calm and stage 2 is crazy like this, or the other way around. Like there at least is one stage where these guys just get so aggressive. Everyone wants to be in the lead, and obviously that's not a thing.
Well, and if we look at how many points separated some of the last races, you know, you wish you could go back to these early races like this and reaccumulate those, because when you start losing them late in the season, you don't have another chance to gain those back. So I think so many of these guys are feeling the pressure early on this season just because of how pressurous last season was.
Took me 7 years of racing against you in NASA Rallycross for that to make sense in my head. Being completely honest. Because we know if someone has a bad race, and like we've talked about it when we're racing NASA, and again, HVMP I know does not cover NASA. I know this isn't, but it's the main thing that I know. And we've all known it, guys. And it's like if you have a bad start at Croft, granted it's only 10 races there, if you have a bad race at Croft, season shot. Unless you can magically pull something out of the hat like Kraus did for 2 seasons there, and get on the podium every single race. But with a stock car, that's a whole different animal because there's so many more variables. You got pit stops and the field and your performance. Granted, performance is there on a rallycross track, but you only have to run 8 laps at most. Here, it's 86 laps. Quite a difference.
Yeah, but they may be so different that they're actually really, really similar, because if you look at it, really none of these NASA races, except for maybe the season opener, feels, you know, very long. And so you could almost think of the pit stops here at Solstice Racing like jokers at NASA Rallycross. And then really the way that they build the rest of the series and the points format and the playoffs and stuff, it really makes it comparable, and that's why we talk about it so much, is because that pressure comes down to the very end.
I think we might be going green this time. We'll have to look. I don't think we are, actually. Baker spins it in turn 3. Unless we are going green, we'll have to look at Stanley here in the 60. I don't think we are. We are going green, as Nick Baker looped it, coming to the green flag. We're going back green, so these guys are trying to avoid the weather. Stanley leads us into turn 1. Bailey second. Cosman third. Cosman on the inside of Bailey. And then Wetz is going to get by Bailey. Wetz only has Rada behind, or sorry, Bailey only had Rada behind him, and now Bailey's behind Wetz. And
Yeah,
this is interesting. This is something we haven't seen. I hate to cut you off there, Dylan. Look, the pack is divided into 2.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We have one of the smallest packs up at the front working with each other that we've seen all day. Could this lead to a little bit of a separation between the field? Is that rear pack going to drop back a little bit? Or are they going to be able to get the suck up? I mean, we've been talking about the aerodynamics and stuff like that. A lot of those cars have been in a lot of different wrecks there. They're probably ill-handling and a little bit slow.
I believe with this package that they're going to catch them, especially if they start working together. That's the one thing. With only 500 horsepower and a big spoiler on the back, you get such big runs. And I think that's where a lot of cautions are coming from, too. We're just not used to these big runs like we're used to.
As it was 1.2 seconds at the line. Granted, usually delta times don't really matter on a super speedway, but I want to see from the timing point of view what it's going to be from Lambert in 6th to Bailey in 51.
Yeah, they're almost there already.
As Bailey, I think, might be pedaling it to try and catch up to the rear pack here. And what he's going to do is lead this rear pack to the lead, as Stanley in front of Cosman, in front of Rada, in front of Wetz. And remember, granted, it's clearly on our screens that they're close. It was 1.2 seconds from the lead to Lambert, and now it's 0.74. So half the time cut in 1 lap, and now we're all single file once again.
Yeah, and it's really going to see, going to be interesting to see how these guys are going to start forming the side-by-side action here again and try to get past them.
As Wetz peeks to the outside, Lambert goes to the inside, leaves Bailey on the outside. Lambert behind Rada. Poulin, car length back from Lambert. So it's 4 versus 5, inside versus outside, and Wetz tries to take the spot, but the outside is struggling through turn 3. Off of 3. Stanley still leads, coming to lap 42 as we get close to the end of stage 2.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, these drivers could be backing off just here a little bit, trying to come off of turn 3, just so they don't hit that wall. I mean, that wall comes at you really quick coming off of 3, and it's a little bit concaved in towards the inside.
As Cosman behind the 60 of Stanley. Rada and Wetz, Lambert and Bailey, Smith and Poulin and Frisch in the 9th position. Russell, Spencer, and Baker are way behind this field. I think they're just waiting for these guys to wreck, because we've seen, whether it's 2 cars, whether it's 10 cars, whether it's 40 cars, you get close enough, you can wad the whole field up.
Yeah, and that's
Lambert.
really when the storm starts brewing, and we got a storm coming in too. These guys racing towards a
Huge
shortened race.
Huge run for Lambert in the 46 down the front straightaway, and he's going to do it. He's going to go from 4th to the lead in 1 straightaway. His teammate behind him, Dylan Smith in the 1. You know what that reminded me of? That reminded me of opening the DRS in Formula 1 and flying past your competitor down a mile-long straightaway. That was a highway-style pass. There was no way that those guys were going to block.
Oh, no.
As Frisch gets turned, defending champion. Spins it down the infield. There's no caution. And another blown tire for the 58. And it just hasn't been his day today. He's going to back it up onto the racing surface. Caution is out.
And I
Yeah,
was
it
going
looks
to tell
like
you
the
that
21 and the 58 just weren't quite lined up there when he went to go make that move.
The 58's got a blown tire, so he's going to hope that either doesn't come apart or he puts it into the wall trying to get back to the pit lane. And the two that came within a bumper, well, that bumper got delivered, but not in the way that Michael Frisch wanted. It sends him through the bus stop, down the back straightaway between turns 2 and 3 here at CRI SuperSpeedway. You're just joining our coverage here on High Voltage Media Productions. We were scheduled to go 103 laps here in Alabama, but that race distance has been shortened to 86 laps due to inclement weather. While it does look sunny there on the monitor, rain in the area. They noticed it on the radar, so we are shortening this event. As at that point, then, we just passed halfway, and Lambert leads Stanley, Bailey, Dylan Smith, Cosman, Steve Rada, Chris Wetz, Jake Poulin, Alex Russell, who is deputized for Chad Mikas, Corey Spencer, Nick Baker, and Michael Frisch. So 2 cars out of this race. One is Cody Erdman, who's joined us in the HVMP commentary box, and the other driver is Arnold Columbia. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Erdman, if you know anything about that, but Arnold Columbia was the 14th car, didn't take the grid, and the 50 or the 39, team just didn't send him out. So I don't know, was he saying anything during pre-race about the car or anything like that?
No, it was probably a mechanical issue. I know we also had Cole. They were having issues as well, so must be electrical issue, maybe like how I was having last year. So I wasn't not exactly sure. We were getting ready to go, so we kind of focused on our own thing.
And a big fake right there by the 51. Could that be a move?
And that is another mention. Cole DeRozier was the other LMT car that was supposed to be here. And I think he was at the circuit, but his entry blank was never registered. At least I don't believe it was. So he was never in the race. So this is going to be interesting. I think that was a good move for the 60 and the 51. Granted, it's a super speedway, so it kind of doesn't matter. But if we treat this like any other race, we're coming to the end of stage 2. And we know that these guys want these points. We know they're important. I think that's probably why they did it.
Yeah, and I bet the 60 was really praying for some more people to not pit there. It's always nice to have a nice big buffer there.
Yeah, I know we were thinking about it in that first stage of skipping one of the cautions and staying out and trying to use track position, but I didn't know my car not liking us being in the front and leading the line. That's why we just pitted with everyone else. So it is a smart move. We were thinking about it, but just never got to it.
As the field getting lined back up here on pit lane, or sorry, on the track after pitting.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say before that caution came out with the move that Lambert pulled, that's the reason why Area 52 decided to team up with LMT and switch to Toyota, because those Toyotas got the horsepower behind them.
Stanley leads Bailey. Coming to 4 to go here in stage 2. Field bunches up as we get ready We go racing once again. Looks like we've lost connection to our pit reporter, Brandon Nicholson, down in the paddock. I'm not sure, due to the weather, our director has sent him off the circuit. As Stanley to the inside in the 60. I don't know what that was, but it certainly surprised everyone, and he holds the lead entering turn 1. Through the first corner. Lambert goes to the outside of the 60. Dylan Smith in the 1, down on the apron. Through the tunnel turn. Bailey with Lambert, Rada with Stanley, and Cosman and Russell in the 25 back to the front. Poulin gets another huge run in the 21. I don't know what he's doing, but it's certainly helping.
You know, and one thing I noticed right there with that move he just did, he's pulling a whole lot of side drive off the outside line and then ducking into the inside line. Oh, his car's getting the wall coming off 3.
Stanley tried to defend against Rada, but it's not going to work. 4 laps to go. Lambert through the middle. And Lambert shoots the gap and puts him to the lead for the moment, but he has to hold it in turn 1. As to the outside is Stanley, falling way back. As Dylan Smith nearly gets hit by Bailey, around is Frisch in the 58.
You know, and that could be a consequence of his dominance from last season. You know, maybe nobody wants to quite work with him or
you know what I'm thinking?
Nice guy.
You know what I'm thinking? I know I mentioned this at Atlanta, as I think we're still green. As, you know, I'm thinking Jason Anderson, Supercross. Remember how he won that championship and started out poorly? Obviously, we don't wish that on Frisch, but it's a result of trying to defend a championship. Wetz goes to the inside with Dylan Smith pushing him past Rada. Russell behind the 3 now. And into turn 1.
We're really starting to see who's going to start working with each other.
9 miles to go here in stage 2.
Toyota versus Chevy.
Frisch has to try and make it back to pit lane, and even if he gets lapped, he will still be back on the lead lap, so he shouldn't worry about stage points given how long the season is, as we know he's good on non-plate tracks. Cosman with Poulin and Lambert, and Bailey and Russell top groove. Then it's Wetz, Smith, Rada, Stanley, and Spencer car length behind the 60. Into the wall is Bailey in the 51. And around 1 is Rada, it looked like, as cars are around as we begin 2 to go in the stage, but caution is out, and I think the stage is going to end under yellow, and Cosman, tentatively, is going to sweep the stages.
Yeah, and you just can't play around like that in the corners. That's way too overzealous and over-aggressive for stage 2.
As we did get confirmation from race control, that was the end of stage number 2. And it looked like Dylan Smith just went on the apron. He thought he was clear of Rada. There was bumper grab, and around it went. How happy would you have to be if you're Michael Frisch? I don't think he was lapped, to be honest. We'll have to wait until timing refreshes it, but I honestly don't think he got lapped.
If you talk about a blessing in disguise, I mean, sure, I guess you'll take it.
As once Cosman goes through pit lane, we're going to bring in our stage 2 winner, and I'll have you answers or ask him some questions for him to answer. And what's up, Cody?
If you want to see some really good wreck avoidance, go look at the 11 car. He avoided that thing like barely, but he did some really good heads up driving.
We'll take a look, at least on my monitor here, and you'll notice if as Rada turns Dylan Smith, Stanley gets turned, and whoo, wow.
And he just went from 10th to 4th because of that too.
And he stays out. I don't know why though. I'll have to get confirmation. I'm asking race control. Because Cosman won the stage. I don't think Corey Spencer knows that. As take a look here down pit lane. Spencer's the only one to stay out. Lambert, Cosman, Stanley, everybody else is pitting.
25
As
around
Russell,
pit road.
Russell spins it on the pit lane. I'm not sure what the 11's trying to do, unless he's trying to just lead some laps. Because he's not technically going to win the stage, because it ended when the caution came out.
And we'll see if we can work on getting the 24 in here really quickly.
We're bringing in our stage 2 winner, Cosman.
Hello, everyone.
As
Cosman, I gotta ask here. You know, when you look back at stage 1, you thought that was kind of tough. Stage 2 looked just a little bit tougher. What are you guys gonna have to do to be able to work together and get to the end of this race?
Survive in the first place. Seems like we're kind of having too many wrecks here for what this is, and oh shit, I'm sorry. But other than that, just block the right lines, and seems like Jake and I work pretty well together.
Now,
Maybe maybe I can repay a favor here by getting him the win, or opposite. Depends how we are on track.
And do you feel like with all this contact that's being made off the walls and off other cars, that bench sheet,
We actually
like that's...
we actually have to interrupt because we are going green. I hate to cut that short. Race control tells me as we are in turn 3 that we are going green, so we'll try and catch up with Cosman if there's another yellow flag. Rada has parked it in the 3. Green flag for Spencer in the 11. I'm not sure why Rada parked it unless he rolled it backwards because that car was perfectly fine. As Poulin...
New tires quickly just devour that 11 there.
Poulin ahead of Bailey, ahead of Stanley and Smith, top 4. Cosman peeks to the outside. Now we only have... Russell goes to the apron, nearly loses it in the 25. We only have 11 cars. This field is shrinking. And as a result, we might not see a lot of maneuvers. At least I might not. I think that these guys have been doing.
Oh, and it's going to have to take a big scheme like that, what the one just did, to go all the way from the outside to the inside. Wetz is going to go down there searching for him. Frisch is going to cut them all off. Wetz doesn't know what to do.
Wetz is trying so hard to find a sniff of draft. Outside line is Bailey, Poulin, Cosman, Frisch, and Wetz. As Poulin off the turn 1, he saves it.
Fantastic save. Great driving by those drivers.
By the 4-time champion.
And they all got back in line in the same spots. These guys definitely calming down here for this last segment.
As I mentioned it on the driver's scanner, I was off the commentary scanner. Smith gets sent to the grass.
That's not the racing groove.
And around they both go. And it was funny because I mentioned that we were going to pull Cosman in when they wrecked again. And Cosman said, "Oh, I can be interviewed in the middle of the race." And Wetz says, "Well, do you really think we're going to wreck again?" And I have to tell you, Chris Wetz, once you watch this, you guys wrecked again.
Yeah, I mean, oh, just...
As Dylan, ask our Stage 2 winner, now that we brought him back in here, what you were going to ask earlier.
Oh, God, I mean, well, what's it going to take for you guys to calm down? That's what I was going to ask, is there any friends left out there anymore, or is anyone just kind of, are you guys just kind of fighting like dogs and trying to get to the front?
It kind of looks like everyone is for themselves, but I can see at least 3 people that are working with each other, and at least 2 teams that are kind of doing that. So we still got 2 lines here forming, and if we want to calm down, we got to wreck more cars, I guess.
And I was gonna bring up that outside line here on the restarts. Since you were starting on the outside that last restart, now we see you in 4th. How big of a disadvantage is it going into 1 versus going into 2 and 3 on that outside line?
It's the biggest disadvantage is coming to the line on exiting 3 because the inside line can get a huge enough run that the leader can pull in front of us. So if we're not careful and he's not careful, whoever's pulling up in front of the outside line might cause the biggest one so far.
Do you feel like there's enough momentum to be made if we have a short restart coming to the finish that you could potentially slingshot on that outside coming through turn 2 and be able to grab that inside line going into turn 3?
With the new rules, definitely there will be 5 laps or a little less, but 5 laps is enough to build momentum and plan some moves.
Well, thanks for letting us pick your brain here, Cosman.
Yeah, sure thing.
As I have to say, I haven't seen anybody else do the move that Poulin's been doing. If he can get it, if he can slingshot that right, and he can, you know what he's doing. He was practicing those last couple laps to get that move right. Brandon Lambert, Race Control, has joined us up in the commentary box for a moment. What happened to you? I didn't think you were involved in that wreck, although I could be crazy.
I was involved in the wreck with Dylan and Rada. Tore the back end of the car up pretty well. I'm done. I couldn't go over 180 miles an hour.
As what have you seen so far today that either excites you, disappoints you, whatever? I mean, this race, despite the few cars, real quick tangent, it surprises me that we don't have a full field. Because I mean, Daytona we had 30 cars, but what surprises you, disappoints you, etc.? Anything?
A little bit disappointed with some of the racing that we've had so far. A lot of knucklehead moves here and there for sure. I'm excited at this package. This package is absolutely incredible, and just people can't use their heads.
As let me take a look and see. So leading is going to be Bailey, then Stanley, Poulin, Russell, Cosman, Wetz, Spencer, Dylan Smith, Nick Baker, Michael Frisch. So we've only got 10 cars, as we had 13 or 14, and now we've only got 10. So we're getting down to the end of this race, and anything really could happen as we're coming about to take a look here. We're going to 86, so about 30 laps to go.
Yeah, let's see how fast they can get through it. The rain's coming in. We shortened the race because the rain coming in. So I think that's maybe why some people are driving with their heads up their butt.
Roll back green. Bailey leads ahead of Stanley. And I'm thinking that these guys are going to calm down for the moment and just try and get to the end.
Yeah, and again, Josh, I can't believe how big of a run that inside line gets here at this racetrack. It's just insane. I don't know if it's just starter's advantage or what it is.
As Stanley peeks to the outside of Bailey with so limited cars, you just have to be able to block the line. These cars are so twitchy with this package, and Wetz is closing, and another huge move to Bailey in the 51. The closing rate's incredible. Pull into the inside of Stanley in the 21, 4-time champion and Daytona winner, season opener last season. Knows how to get it done on these big tracks. He goes to the outside to block Stanley. Now he's got to block Bailey. Bailey's going to peek to the inside of the 21. Will Wetz go even lower? We begin lap 56.
No, but Smith will.
Dylan Smith thought about it, but he wasn't close. It's 2 cars versus 4. You got a side draft. That's a big thing. I never thought that side drafting would be a big deal with this package. Bailey got really close. Cosman's going to shoot the middle again, but he thought better of it. He saw that whole closing.
Yeah, and you see that outside line really squeeze down on the inside. coming out of turn 2, that really gives the outside line an advantage. But once you go down here into this little, well, I shouldn't call it little, I guess coming off turn 1's the short shoot, but coming off turn 2, you get that straightaway and be able to line you up coming into turn 3. You want to be able to take that air off these guys. And watch, Bailey's going to try to do it coming off here.
Russell in the 25 around off of turn 3.
But now we're starting to see the momentum come from the inside line really good now. Underneath whoever's leading that pack.
As Russell deputized once again, if you're just joining our coverage, deputized for Chad Mikas. The 25 hasn't had a good day. Wetz, Cosman on the inside. They are the Lone Rangers. Everybody else on the outside. Bailey Poulin does it again. Gets a huge run on the 51. And he just had to cut off Wetz. If he did that on the highway, it wouldn't be too great. Smith behind Cosman.
Yeah, and these guys have absolutely no patience, but this setup allows them to be able to make quick moves like that, to be able to defend the inside and the outside line. And to be able to make those powerful slingshot moves. We've seen it work so many times here. It's just going to be able to it's going to just come down to who's going to be able to make that last one, Josh.
As Russell gets serviced on pit lane. I don't know. I think Frisch either lost the draft or has damage on that car because he is not in the main pack. As we only have, it looks like 8 cars in this main pack. And this is getting to the point where I almost think of like a 70s, 80s, very early 90s plate race. I mean, these guys are just going to be single file. You got to get the slingshot. I would love to see a race like that instead of these packs, but that's my personal opinion. 3 wide Cosman, Bailey, and Wetz. For third, Poulin has a huge run, and he sends the one of Dylan Smith ahead of Stanley in the 60.
Yeah, and the pack helps develop it, but I mean, once you get into a pack, there's no place to go once you're in that pack. You want nice, wide open racetrack to be able to pull those slingshot moves. Oh, as we just see guys, I mean, these guys have absolutely no patience right now at this stage in the race. We're seeing guys bump 4 or 5 cars back right now, all the way into turn 1.
As Bailey peaks on the 60 of Stanley, he thought to go through the middle. He didn't have the run. It's 3 cars versus 3 cars. Spencer closes up on the 24. The draft that these guys have is immense with this aerodynamic package, but they can't stay closed up. Dylan Smith side drafts the 51. The side draft is so immense. I'm watching from the helicopter feed out of the commentary box, and the helicopter feed, these guys, the side draft is blowing my mind.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see the variations in mile per hour when you finally get that slingshot move. I mean, look here, the 24 of Cosman's going to get up to 200, and, you know, some of these guys back behind him are only running 198.
How hopeless do you feel when you're in a plate race and you're foot to the floor and you think you've got all the momentum and you don't, and you, like, for example, don't win the race? How annoying is that?
It's like getting the slow go-kart at the go-kart track. I mean, honestly, you could have your foot all the way to the floor and it's just doing nothing. And then you just constantly are looking behind you like, where's that run going to come from? Where's he going to come from? And it gets really scary. It really does.
As Dylan Smith on the outside of Jeremy Stanley. Stanley's going to clear him, it looks like, off a 3.
You know, and Josh, I think a lot of these guys are going to start looking out of their rear bumpers, but I think one man who has his vision fully out his front windshield is that 60 car.
But we got to be careful for Russell in the 25, the lapped car for Big Evil Racing. Will he be a factor? He's going to stay on the outside of the track. I think turn 3 is going to bite a couple more people before this race ends. Remember, we are going to lap 86. Timing and scoring might read 103. Weather in the area, we are not going that far. 25 laps to go here in Alabama. And the story of the day has been calamity, been attrition, been surviving. Because we started with 13 cars, we now have 9 in the main, and only 10. We have 10, 9 are on the lead lap, 8 are in the lead pack.
Although, honestly, I really do think this is going to be a statement as to what this Solstice ProLine series is going to be here on out. I mean, we demonstrated we can put on a good show, something that a lot of people can drive, but we've always known Solstice Racing. Once they get that down, once they get the fundamentals down, they always love to crank up that intensity just a little bit more, make it a little bit harder for the drivers, and always mix things up. So, and with there being a cash payout here at the end of the season, I think that's on a lot of drivers' minds right now.
As Bailey behind Stanley, way outside, nearly in the wall, is Dylan Smith with Jake Poole, and Smith cuts way down to the inside. He's trying to get the momentum on the 51. Cosman with Wets behind him, and then it's Spencer with Nick Baker. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of 2011. Look at Dylan Smith and Jake Poole in two-car tandem to the lead.
Yeah, and we saw those two drivers run way up and way up in the marbles coming off turn 3 there. And we see it set them up perfectly to be able to get that run. Now they just need to be able to hit that sweet spot in that turn 3 corner to be able to land it all the way down the straightaway and get that run a little bit earlier to be able to cross that. Oh, start finish line
Stanley
first.
does the same thing. Bailey follows him, and as a two-car tandem fan, this is genuinely making me happy. I loved seeing that kind of racing, and here we are, unintentionally of course, finding ourselves with that kind of racing.
Yeah, this was definitely not by design here, but boy, is it proven to be exciting.
We have to see if the 1 and the 21 are going to hook up. And the way that this kind of hybrid tandem works is you have to hook up off the corner, and you have to cut it way down low to get the run off the hill.
Yeah, and Josh, this is just a huge consequence of all the carnage that happened early on in the race. That's why it's all bets off. These guys are just running out there, trying to just find something with somebody and be able to get up front.
Will the 60 and the 51 do it again? They will. And Stanley to the inside. 199 versus 201. Slowly climbing their way to the lead. Stanley back out front.
And so with potentially your friend out of the race early on in this attrition battle, we're seeing some of these alliances develop.
And Dylan Smith and Poulin with a huge run. I hate to cut you off, but they're doing it again.
And disrupting that duo perfectly there. They're going to make them relegate to the back here. They're going to try to get that outside momentum through turn 1, which isn't going to be there.
This is one of my favorite races that I've ever personally watched. This is amazing because these guys, we're going to break the fourth wall here. NASCAR 2003 is not a sim that you can do tandem racing on. People have tried for years to try and manipulate every single thing that they can in the sim to try and get this to work. And we're somehow now, 15 years later, 16 years later, kind of doing it. It's amazing.
We see the ebb and flow of those partnerships coming and going too, which is fantastic as well. I mean, yeah, as long as the fourth wall is broken here, we could talk about, you would see some of these tandems, fade, and then they'd be able to kind of rework that momentum and get ahead again. And now we see these guys switching up, maybe trying something a little bit different. Maybe you didn't like that one partner, maybe you can't get it done. Maybe you got to find somebody else to beat that other pair.
And now Spencer's the odd man out because we know, at least I personally believe that Poulin and Smith realizes, okay, this is how we can win this race. We know that Bailey and Stanley are going to stay together. Spencer, I don't think, realizes that this is the way to do it. Wets to the inside of Poulin. And Poulin, the 21, I think he clutched it to try and get behind the 71, and that might hurt him. Dylan Smith on the outside now with the 25 of Russell. But was that a strategy move to get back to the 21?
Well, and I do know these guys run pretty close to the limit on tape, so I wonder if some of these guys are going to get a little bit of hot pushing.
We're under 20 laps to go. Will we have to pit? Is the big thing. But even if we do pit, the strategy game is incredible, and these two cars, Jeremy Stanley, Joey Bailey, out front. And now Poulin trying to pick up any sliver of draft he can to get back to the one of Dylan Smith, unless he's changed his mind and he's not going to help the Rheem Camry. As we still have a couple of our drivers up here in the commentary box joining us, Brandon Lambert, Cody Erdman. Guys, What do you think about the racing that has evolved from earlier today to now?
My opinion,
this is-
it's changed a lot, Lambert. In my opinion, it's changed a lot since me and you were out there.
looks like it has for sure. This track is so unique that it creates some of the most unique racing for super speedway packages. Anyway, all the corners are they're nice and sweeping corners, but they're tighter than most super speedway tracks, and they're banked at 35 degrees and turns 1 and 3, and then it's banked 31 degrees through turn 2 or the tunnel turn. So they're a little bit more banked than Talladega and 1 and 3, and then about the same in turn 2. But what creates the crazy racing here is the weird shape of turn 3 off the corner, and then also the long straightaways.
As now, looks like everyone's calmed down. 18 laps to go here at CRI SuperSpeedway. Stanley leads Bailey. Wetz now finds Poulin, but Poulin's going to back up to Dylan Smith. I think that's a pair that you cannot separate because those two have worked so hard with essentially, for lack of a better term, mastering this package, mastering this form of the racing, that everyone else has realized, oh crap, we need to figure something out. And if I do a quick count, we've got 8 cars in the lead draft, so everyone's going to have a partner. But Russell is off the lead lap. So that's a 9th car, and that will not help these guys. But also, it might, because if one of these guys hooks up with the lapped car, they don't have to worry about getting passed for the win. As Poulin gets turned by Smith down the pit lane, and the 4-time champion hits the end of the pit wall. And I think that might have sealed any hope for the 21 winning this race, as we hoped he wouldn't have caught the pit wall, but he did.
As we almost saw that with Chris Wetz.
And said, I mean, you could talk it, and it's, as commentators, you talk it and hype it up, of course, because you have to. But then it's commentators' curse. You talk about something for so long, and then this happens. We'll have to see if the 21 crew can fix this car up.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of contact mid-corner there between the 1 and the 21, and then just coming off. They met again, and just ever so barely just clips that passenger side rear there on the pit wall and just destroys the car.
Oh yeah, Dylan looks like he got just off that corner. It's really loose off of turn 3 sometimes, especially if somebody's right on your spoiler, right on your rear bumper coming off turn 3. Looks like Jake just got a little bit loose, tried to correct it, and then Dylan just had a little bit too much speed and got right in the back of him.
Yeah, but it's really hard to be able to judge that run coming off turn 3 because obviously you want to be able to figure out how to push that guy who's in front of you down the straightaway, propel him to a potential win.
It's the worst when that happens, though. When you're coming down, like if I was in Poulin's situation, obviously you get turned. You're like, oh crap, I'm spinning. Oh crap, I'm spinning. Oh crap, I'm spinning. And then he got it straightened out for that split second. And in my mind, I'd be like, okay, this is okay. And then at 100 miles an hour, you get lurched around because you caught the back bumper, and that's the worst feeling.
Yeah, especially when you think you have it dodged, and then all of a sudden it just comes to bite you in the rear, literally.
As Poulin's obviously pitted already, he's got a black flag, so he's going to have to let the field by. But I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up. He's going to hope, or he's going to have to hope that there's going to be someone on his back bumper, or what was left of the back bumper, more so the bumper bar, to keep him in this race. Because even more so now, there's not going to be any cars to draft with.
Yeah, and you talk about being that odd car out, maybe somebody who wants to kind of change the way his day's been going as the 25, look for them to potentially work with each other.
If I was the 25 of Russell, I would personally, you've got nothing to lose because you're off the lead lap. Why not help the guy that has a damaged back end? Like, just dedicate yourself to him, and who knows? 25 crew might make a friend for when the regular driver Chad Mikas is back in the hot seat. I think that'd be a huge benefit for that team. Obviously, we're up in the commentary box. They're the ones down on track, so it's hard to know what's going on in their heads. But the best part of this, speculate what's going on. And
well, I mean, it makes sense with his experience of a driver as the 21 is.
As I believe we're going green this time, we're going to come to 15 laps to go. And this has been a very unique race. Those two-car tandem type drafts have been exceptional. And we're going to see a man called Michael Frisch. It's another attempt to stay in the draft. Let's see what the defending champion can do.
You know, if he can keep all 4 tires underneath him, I think he might have a chance to do something good in this draft.
Off of turn 3. Stanley, Bailey, Cosman, Wetz, Spencer, top 5. Coming down to 15 laps to go here in Alabama to begin the 22nd season. Green flag. A much better restart than before, but still the inside lane's going to pull away.
Yeah, a lot more equal off the line. That's going to allow for the field to kind of file in a little bit smoother here.
Off of turn 1. Will Frisch be able to hold up with the pack? Will Poulin affect these guys? Dylan Smith is going to dart underneath the 58. The top 3 are trying to pull away. Remember, Poulin obviously has damage. Wetz did have damage. They were able to buff it out. But now Stanley, Bailey, and Cosman pulling away. Dylan Smith pulling away as well. And we talked about the 21. As long as he was in the draft, he'd be fine. Look where he is.
We can see his fuel cell right now, Josh.
In the draft. Frisch behind him, along with Russell. As Cosman trying to side draft off the 51 of Bailey.
And you really can't be the Lone Ranger like that. Somebody's got to go with you, but it's really hard to communicate that with body language sometimes with other drivers.
Poulin is staying in the draft, and so is Frisch. Frisch mowed the lawn in the football field twice so far this race. Russell looks like he's going to give the one a bump.
And so 2 championship rivals from last season kind of helping each other through their perils here.
Through their crazy race here in Alabama. Cosman with Dylan Smith and Alex Russell on the outside. As Joey Bailey tries to peek the middle to try and block Cosman, but he can't block both lanes at once. The car's not that wide. Off at turn 3. And Jeremy Stanley holds the lead here beginning lap 74. And I can't fathom the 21 in the draft right now.
You know, and it's fantastic to be able to control your own destiny like that once you've had something like that happen to you.
As now, Cosman with Dylan Smith, they got the huge run. I think they're perfecting that tandem kind of draft. They're getting the side draft. Through turn 2, Bailey peaking on the 60 of Stanley.
Yeah, and you see when the 51 ducked outside there, it took all the air off the front of the 24.
Through 3 again. People might say that how are you entertained by cars going in a left turn all day, but let me tell you, this race has been something else here on High Voltage Media Productions. 3 cars on the inside. One of them should have burst into flames, basically, but it didn't hit the fuel cell. It only tore the bumper off.
And Josh, I can tell you why. It's because of how hard these drivers are fighting right now for this win.
As Stanley leads, Bailey leads, Poulin on the outside with Cosman on his outside. Or lap 75, Poulin under the yellow line. I don't know if he's given up the ghost or not.
No,
but
I've been watching Poulin every time out of 1, and he is sideways because there's no rear spoiler on that thing. He has no rear downforce, so he is sideways every time out of 1.
Now Cosman with Dylan Smith. Poulin's going to let the 58 go. I think that's a way of telling him that I'm just going to try and give you drafting help. The outside groove's getting a free car with Alex Russell 1 lap down, so maybe, Hopefully, of course, they don't, but maybe if they wreck, Russell is back in this fight as he's the only car off the lead lap. Stanley goes to the outside to block Cosman. Now the inside is open from Bailey. He is not clear of
Oh, he lost his
Bailey,
partner.
and Bailey looks like he's going to go to the lead. But now Stanley. Can he clear Cosman? He's clear of Cosman. Can he go to the outside? Yes, he's going to save face a little bit. But now Frisch with his championship rival on the bottom.
And this is just such fantastic close racing here right now. These guys are leaning off each other, trying to get that side draft, walking, shoving.
And now, the two men who battled for the 2019 A Championship are racing for the season opener win. Frisch goes up the hill in the 58. Cosman's not going to let him come back down, and the defending champion is on the outside. Stanley behind him. Bailey! Wow, what a move from Bailey. He saved it. But now Cosman through the middle. Into turn one. Stanley the inside of Bailey. Can he take the fight? 3 wide for second. Bailey's got to block 3 lanes. That's not going to happen as Stanley to the inside of him. Cosman battling with Frisch off of turn number 1.
Yeah, and a huge game
Bailey.
of limbo down to that bottom yellow line. Went down, going down the front straightaway there.
As Bailey. I haven't seen a performance like this in a long time. You know what I think about? I think of Brad Keselowski in the Cup Series. He's able to do this. Logano's able to do this, is block every lane and stall the momentum.
Yeah, and what a game changer it is when you could really perfect that.
As Stanley gets a huge run off the corner, he's going to give the 51 a bump. Beginning lap 78.
Yeah, I was able to notice that in the car that he could really control the race by what lane he was in, especially when he was out front. I think he was probably the most dominant car when he was out front.
So going
4
side
cars
by
versus
side right
4
now
cars.
here on the HVMP monitors, you're going to really see how big of a momentum shove that outside line gets coming off turn 1 into turn 2.
The only 2 cars that are on the track that are out of this pack, it's Nick Baker, winner from Charlotte last season, and Corey Spencer in car number 11. Everybody else is on track. Dylan Smith has the run on the outside. Bailey thought he was clear, and he wasn't. They're 3 wide for second. Stanley the inside of the 51. Cosman behind the 51, and Dylan Smith is going to be back on the outside.
Yeah, and you really see how it all funnels down going into that corner.
Huge run for Frisch. I thought he was going to go to the inside, and I didn't mean to cut you off for that one. But Frisch had a huge run off the corner, and I think, personally, he might have picked the wrong move.
No, he just picked the right time. That's what he did. I mean, if he would have jumped down there any sooner down that straightaway, it would have been like hopping into a Viper's pit.
And now he's not clear. Stanley lifted, and he gave him the spot. You know what I see on the bottom? These 4 cars? I see championship competitors. And Frisch, you got to do that. Even when you can't go into the yellow line, you have to halfway peak that half car width, because if he fakes it, you're taking that lead. Russell hits the wall in the 25. Remember, he's the wild card in this whole pack because he's off the lead lap. Frisch on the outside of the 51. Stanley in the 60 near the 51. 6 cars versus 3 now, 5 versus 3, and Bailey has to hold the lead. Through turn 1. Off of turn 1. Bailey holds the lead somehow. This momentum that he has been able to hold is immense. And the run that Frisch is getting, defending champion who ended up in the grass twice so far this race, is battling for the lead. He was in this position 1 season ago against Jake Poulin, where he ended up a bumper short. And we talked about this in the opener, Dylan. We're getting close. Remember, weather in the area. We have to end the race on lap 86. And Lambert, I think we're coming to the point of no return, are we not?
We're getting very close.
As coming to 5 laps to go. The overtime line is the transition pavement out of the tunnel turn. Correct me if I'm wrong. If we get past that with no caution, there will be no cautions until the checkered flag.
That is correct.
Through turn 1. Can we make it to the overtime line without a caution? Stanley and Frisch side by side. Cosman bumping the 58 through turn 2. Will we pay attention?
Oh no!
Frisch is going to get turned! And that is going to be a wreck before the overtime line.
And a lot of, I mean, Frisch is all beat up over that.
But hold on. What happened to Poulin's car, where he was still competing at race speed?
You know, and we've seen Frisch battle from just so many hardships throughout this race. I mean, it's gonna get really aggressive here coming down. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on track right now.
What are the odds that they wad him up coming to the overtime line?
I would say you brought up the commentators first earlier. I think you just did it again.
As pits are open. And will Russell get back on the lead lap? Is the real question. Since I have race control sitting next to me, I have to ask you, does that put the 25 back on the lead lap?
Yes, he is. He's a lucky dog.
So what are the odds that the 25, now that he's back on the lead lap and he stayed through this entire race, can pull one off?
You know, it just really goes to show you. I mean, that's kind of the race car culture I grew up around, was never quit. Always, you know, it doesn't matter if you're 1 lap down or 40 laps down. You stay in the race, you might pass somebody. But, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so.
As this is going to be exciting. And half of me just doesn't want to talk, but then it would be a boring show. Because the fact that they wad up 50 feet before the overtime line is... What are the odds? Commentator's curse, though, as Mr. Erdman pointed out. Bailey stays out, and granted, tires aren't very important, but I think that's a very good point, because if he would have pitted, someone would have taken 2 tires or no tires, and potentially change that up. Dylan Smith second, third Poulin, fourth Cosman, fifth Frisch, sixth Wetz, seventh Spencer, eighth Baker, ninth Stanley, and 10th is Alex Russell.
Yeah, and at this point, it'd almost be unfathomable to think if the 51 wasn't out front, just because he's dominated, just going in between the high line and the low line, and really keeping those cars at bay. He's driving out of his mirror more than his front windshield. What he's going to try to do to win the race? I mean, there's really nothing he can do. He's a sitting duck out there in the front.
There's going to be a 3-lap dash to decide this. 9 miles left at the CRI SuperSpeedway. Depending on what camera the director's on, there's 2 cars without a rear bumper, and they're still as fast as the rest of the field.
And they're starting on the inside.
As we're closing in on 2 hours. Remember how we talked about the season opener normally takes a long time, and luckily the weather in the area is going to end this race early. Otherwise, we can go for a couple more hours at this point. We're going to come to 3 laps to go. 9 miles at CRI SuperSpeedway. It looks like the end of a Cup Series race with only 10 cars, but I'll tell you, this 10-car field has been incredible. Bailey, Smith, Poulin, Cosman, Frisch, top 5, green flag in Alabama.
Yeah, and we see that inside line really going to work for the 51, and now just makes the job easy for him.
Car length from him to Smith. We know that if you get a huge run on the plate tracks, it's not a good idea. History has shown us that if you're leading in a plate track, you're probably going to lose the race. Bailey's got to go the inside. Smith ducks under the yellow, potentially, but Dylan Smith to the lead.
And now Bailey's biggest test since really the last part of this race.
But there's 2 damaged cars on the inside. There's 3 strong cars versus 1 strong car and 2 damaged cars. Will the draft be any indication through turn 3? Will we have a repeat of Daytona between the 21 and the 58 off of turn 3? Those guys without a rear spoiler get very loose and pull into the inside.
That's pulling completely disappeared from our monitors there.
That put Cosman to second. 3 to go in Alabama. As Smith leads. Bailey holds the outside. Smith goes to the outside. He wasn't clear, but he stalled the momentum for a moment of Bailey, but Bailey is 2 miles an hour faster than car number 1 through the tunnel turn.
Where you really see that a high line dominate, and if you can't defend it, here it comes.
As Bailey holds the lead. All you got to do is be in front by a bumper. We saw by Poulin last season. That's all that matters. We saw Darlington, for that matter, between Jonathan Taylor and Dylan Poteet. Dylan Smith holds the lead. Cosman side drafted a little bit too hard on the 51 of Joey Bailey. 2 to go. And I typically have just shaking in general when there's nothing going on, but I'm genuinely shaking right now as we get ready to close this race. Wett's behind Bailey, Cosman behind Dylan Smith, and Frisch holding strong in third. And don't forget about Jeremy Stanley, who led this race.
Yeah, and really, I mean, if I wouldn't be in any position right now, it'd probably be that 60 car or the 51.
It's interesting that you say that you want to be in the spot of the 60. You're 4 cars behind the leader through turn 3. Off of turn 3. It's going to be 3 miles. 2.9 to be exact. But Dylan Smith's got 1 lap. Frisch to the inside points. Defending champion. White flag as we're 3 wide for second.
Yeah, and these guys get it shifted up big to try to get the...
Bailey to the inside. And Bailey back to the lead. Frisch is now in second. And can Frisch seal this deal with a demolished car in the 58? Inside, Bailey blocks him. Outside, he's got to go. He's got to block both lanes. Dylan Smith now in the tunnel turn. Half a lap, left. Bailey can't do anything but try and side draft the 1.
Rubbing fenders.
They're getting ever so close. Frisch has got to back up a little bit to try and get a run off the 60. Bailey is fading potentially through turn 3. Off of turn 3, it's just like we talked about. Bailey off the corner. Can he hold off car number 1? Down to the line. It's going to be Dylan Smith as everyone wads it up as he opens the season winning at CRI SuperSpeedway.
Oh, and Frisch just couldn't get enough of that side draft to be able to make it done on the 1. What a huge defensive move there on that last restart. That's off to Dylan Smith.
What a race.
Took us a while, but we're finally here, and we finally have the answer to all of our questions that we had at the beginning of the race.
Wow. As Dylan Smith, I want to say, this is the first time an LMT car has won in a while, because LMT, Brandon, I believe you're still here connected with us. LMT didn't win last season.
That is correct. We did win.
And how is it? I mean, I know how Dylan Smith drives. He used to drive for me. And how does it feel to get the monkey off your back to win in the season opener?
It's incredible. I'm so happy for Dylan. He's been after him one. He had a last season. He was there at the end in a lot of races. Just couldn't quite get it done. I'm more thrilled that he's in victory lane than I think I would even be right now. So it's incredible to see him back in victory lane.
As Dylan will bring in our race winner here.
Yeah, and it is really special for the 1 to be able to see him celebrate down here. I mean, man who's really put in a whole lot of effort all last season and built up to this point. Dylan, how does it feel?
How about that finish?
You made it exciting for us.
I was certainly out of breath coming off of turn 3. I know how hard you race from the NASA days. I know how determined you get, and the fact that you didn't give up despite being on the outside, pretty crazy.
Yeah, a lot played into that one. I knew how the lanes worked throughout the whole race. Just trying to, Jake and I were doing some R&D with the runs we did on the high side, and I knew as soon as I got up there, that was it.
I have to ask you because in the middle portion of that race there, it was almost like you were 2-car tandeming. How did that exactly come to fruition there? Because you and Poulin were flying off the corners and basically tandeming by.
We were just working out how much space he'd give between me entering turn 3, so we could be right on with the exit, because you got a massive run off the high side with the way the transition was. And if someone behind you could time the draft just right, they could just shoot you all the way to the lead. It's kind of crazy.
As Dylan, you got anything for our race winner?
Yeah, and Dylan, what kind of things do you have to do? I mean, obviously you have some limited communication between drivers, but how do you kind of shift your body language towards the end of the race with your car to say, hey, work with me, let's get this done, let's try to get these runs going, let's learn something for the end, and then how do you put that into action?
A lot of it there had to do with friendships I had with like Cosman and Jake and everyone. I knew I couldn't stay on the bottom. Jake and Frisch were parachutes with the damage, but Cosman, I knew he was willing to work with me. He was pushing me the whole time, and we kind of had the same mindset. Let's just do something crazy and go for it.
And then Dylan, and I mean, how are you going to ride this momentum off for the rest of the season? We saw Jake Poulin do very well in the championship all the way to the end. Do you feel like this could be one of your tickets, at least?
Oh, I'm gonna go win more races. This is the momentum I need.
At least for a vote of self-confidence. That's the way to go after it. Congratulations to you, and good to see you back in victory lane.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Wow, that's really all I have to say. Of course, we're gonna recap this here. Lambert, Cody, thank you guys for joining us. We're not quite done, but I want to hear your thoughts. We're going to start with Mr. Lambert here on even including your demises in today's race. Lambert, what do you think?
I think it set the precedent for the rest of the season. New package of the season, so I know it's a different package at SuperSpeedways, but oh man, this makes me excited. I was happy to see fantastic finish there. I'm happy to see that. First of all, LMT cars in victory lane, but second, I'm happy to see what we're looking forward to now. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of weeks for sure. I want to see how this is going to play out. I know it's going to be a tough, long season, but I think it's going to be incredible.
Cody?
Yeah, we're looking forward to coming back to Daytona with this package. Daytona's kind of always been my kind of kryptonite where I haven't ran that great or had issues. So hopefully we can come to Daytona with this package. It was a really fun package, and I think with going to Daytona with it, I think with it being easier to run 3 wide the whole time, I think it's going to be even more of an entertaining race. So we thought this was good. I think that's going to be even way better. So yeah, we're looking forward to running the whole season. We got some good tracks of mine with Milwaukee and Lucas Oil and Darlington. I've won at and all the road courses. So this is gonna be a good season for us, I feel.
As Brandon Nicholson down on pit lane updated the point standings. We'll go over that in a moment. But my friend, what did you see during today's race?
Well, I really like this new package that Solstice brought. I'm sure Lambert and all the guys at Solstice were hard on that, and we saw it bring just a totally unique style of racing here. Really had to drive the car. It looked like setup that they brought. It's just made for an incredible race. Hats off to Dylan on that one.
And before we go over points and I wrap us all up, last but not least, Mr. Dylan Livingood.
You know, a lot of the season left to go, but if this race is any descriptor of how the rest of the season go, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, we saw a lot of tight racing. These guys really have to use the side draft, really have to be bunched up together. Provides for a lot of really close quarters racing. And then we saw the intensity still hasn't dropped off from last season. Even if we did have a smaller opening field than what we did last season, you wouldn't even realize it if you're watching this broadcast. It felt just as intense as if you would have had 25 cars on the field, and I feel like that's going to be how it will be all season. And you know, I feel like it's going to be a learning curve for a few of these guys. You know, just trying to learn how to race with each other. We saw people not play very nice with Frisch, and so how do those relationships develop for these next 17? It's going to be interesting to find out.
As Real quick, before we wrap us up here, the top 5 in points as we leave the CRI SuperSpeedway is Cosman in the points lead due to the stage finishes with 36 points. Joey Bailey second, Dylan Smith third, Jake Poulin fourth, and Jeremy Stanley in fifth with 27 points. I have to say that, like I mentioned at the opener, I've never seen, until tonight, never seen a race at this track. I've seen footage of it. I've seen pictures. I was like, this is just a regular old track. We're not going to see anything crazy. And this has quickly become one of my favorite tracks because of the uniqueness of the triangle, because of the different corners, because of the bump off of 3. Personally, I don't want us to tear down this track. I want us to keep it the way it is because I've seen things that I haven't seen on a plate track in a long time. And especially with the way that the drivers were able to manipulate the draft, whether it's side draft or just without the rear bumper or whatever. I just can't put it into words other than, amazing, incredible, outstanding driving, outstanding skill. And I say this every week. You just got to tune in every week here on HVMP, and it's going to get better from there. We're going to go next week to Phoenix, Arizona at the ISM Raceway. And it's a lot like Nazareth. So if we say that we'll predict it, we'll say that Joey Bailey and Chad Michaels will crash, and Michael Frisch will wad it up in turn 4, and then he'll somehow win the race. But Solstice Racing isn't scripted, so we have no idea what's going to happen. But from all of us here on High Voltage Media Productions at the CRI SuperSpeedway, from Brandon Nicholson down on pit lane, from our special guests Cody Erdman, Brandon Lambert, Dylan Livigood next to me in the commentary box, I am Josh Mertz. We hope you enjoyed today's coverage here on High Voltage Media Productions, and we'll see you next week at the newly renamed ISM Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona. But until then, so long, everyone.